Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 135 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author and PR consultant and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content, events and training platform providing success strategies and resources for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. Firstly, a quick announcement. I get a lot of people contacting me asking how they can work with me. So this is a little plug to let you know that I offer a range of services to vegan and plant-based business owners and entrepreneurs. From online training and group coaching to PR, content creation and copywriting services, and one-on-one tailored individual private consultations. So if you're wanting help to promote or grow your vegan business, brand, product, service, book, or other creative project, head over to veganbusinessmedia.com and click on the Work With Me menu link for more details. Now for the main part of the show. In this episode, I interview Melissa Murphy Webster from AVS Organic Foods vegan cheese company in Melbourne, Australia. The company, which was originally called A Vegan Smiles, was the first to produce non-dairy cheese in block form in Australia, which Melissa distributed via markets and retail stores. Melissa has a strong business background, including holding an MBA, which she completed in 2017. Prior to starting her own business in 2013, she worked for 17 years with the Chemist Warehouse Group and its subsidiaries in several roles, finishing up as Head of Security and Fraud Operations Manager. She's recently built and opened a production facility in Epping in the state of Victoria to expand AVS Organic Foods while simultaneously partnering with vegan meat company Unreal Co. to start a new business called Ethical Manufacturing, which will contract manufacture vegan products for existing and new plant-based businesses. In this episode, Melissa discusses how she went from selling artisanal vegan cheeses at markets to being sold almost immediately nationwide in stores, a little-known strategy to get your products on shelves that doesn't involve you cold-calling retailers, why she decided to shift from working directly with retailers to working with a distributor, the problems and resistance from local councils that forced her to move premises 4 times, why she decided to open her own production facility, the benefits of contract manufacturing other vegan businesses' products, and much more. Here's the interview with Melissa Murphy Webster from AVS Organic Foods. Hello, Melissa. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Katrina. Thanks for having me.
So it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And just for our regular listeners who are tuning in from across the globe, Melissa and I know each other. She's based in Australia, although in a different state to me. She's based in Melbourne and I'm in Sydney. But I have had the pleasure of tasting her cheeses. And I'm very excited because she's now got a cheese manufacturing plant that she's opened. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. So very pleased to have you on the show, Melissa. And tell us about the why, first of all. That's what I like to kick off with every guest. Why do you do what you do and why cheese?
Well, the why do I keep doing it, or why did I do it?
Why did you start it to begin with? So tell us a little bit about your career trajectory and how you came to open a vegan cheese business.
Yeah. So the short story that I tell everyone is I really loved and enjoyed the tradition and the social of having a cheese and wine platter. And 6 years ago when I went vegan, there's only a few international options, and they really weren't that great. So I started playing around, and here we are. The long story, though, was I used to be in retail risk mitigation. So I've had a few different careers through my span, but I finished up in a retail business looking after their security and fraud. And I was just a bit starting to, when you just get lackluster, And one of my colleagues was doing the MBA, and he and I used to talk about the assignments that he was doing, and I just thought it was fascinating and brilliant. And he coaxed me to start doing my MBA, which really frightened me because I've got a year 8 pass. So I've never actually done any real assignments. I've never done any or sat any exams, and I was really nervous. But he was so helpful in saying, look, I'll be here to support you. So I started that. And as I started my MBA, I also went vegan. And the things that you
two big things
in 2013. And the funny thing about veganism, if you're not already vegan and you go vegan for ethical reasons, all the unethical behavior around you really starts to get highlighted. And whilst doing my MBA, I realized that I could control this much more if I thought about taking this information and all the things that I learned from my years with different businesses and try and make a business myself. So I took my long service and started a Vegan Smiles, which is what it was called that day. Much to my friends' insistence, different friends saying, you can't start a vegan business. There are no vegans. You will lose money. You will go out of business. So you should at least have vegetarian options. And stubbornly, I said no. And moving forward 6 years, here I am, still making vegan products. Never made a vegetarian product in all the time that I've been running this business, and it turns out that people do want vegan options. So.
Oh, amazing. I hope you invited that friend to your opening of your cheese factory recently.
I did. I did actually. We're still very close. We're very good friends.
Oh,
they're actually vegan themselves now.
Oh, amazing. Oh, there you go. Yeah. It just shows you just don't know, do you? So that's wonderful. I love that. I didn't know that about you. So that's a really nice, really nice story. I enjoyed hearing that. So let's go back to the beginning. Tell us about what were some of your key challenges when you first started out with the business?
Okay. 6 years ago. Now, I know that you've been vegan for a much, much, much longer time.
22 years.
Wow. So I really can't imagine trying to start this 22 years ago because people were they just opposed it. They were definite they did not want to be part of it. I had issues with cancels, one in particular that were just so determined to make it difficult for me to start the business that I actually had to move vicinities.
Wow.
And I've actually moved 4 times now. I've been in 4 different cancels, and for the most part, they're okay. One was horrible, and I do believe that has actually impacted the growth of my business.
Gosh.
And where I am now.
So when you say they were making it difficult for you, do you mean in terms of getting like your zoning and your permissions and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so they were putting in obstacles in place. So I'm still 6 years later considered a micro business. And so they were insisting that even though my water usage was just still very low, that I needed to put in a $60,000 litre water unit.
Wow.
Or I had to do extra food handling training, which no other business has done that I'm aware of. They've made me pay different fees, and they were just all about that if you don't do this, then we're going to fine you and seize all your stock. They were just very nasty people. Wow. It was just not a good council. Where I am now, and which is Whittlesea, and one other council, Jerrabin, amazing. They actually were very involved in opening up this factory and helping me get the papers that I needed and the planning permits and whatnot. If anyone's starting a new business, I would strongly recommend that they see if their council where they want to start their business has an economic development department. It's really important. Mm-hmm. And their job is to help small businesses or any businesses open up, hire, trample through all the permits and planning obstacles in place, because they're the people that know that small businesses create jobs which help with infrastructure.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that
So,
was
so they
council was
obviously weren't
definitely
doing that at the beginning of yours, though.
no, no, they were, and
Yeah.
I do believe it was purely based on that it was vegan cheese. They really had
Right.
an issue with that because
Yeah, you don't know
I've
what
come across.
connections people might have, like their family might be in
Yeah.
the industry and what have you, and the very idea
Oh,
of
yeah.
vegan cheese. So how did you overcome that? So you had these challenges, you were starting out your business. How did you overcome those challenges?
So in particular, that one, in the end, I had no option other than to move. I had to move.
Gosh.
And so I changed councils and I went out to Darebin, and they were great. And in looking for this facility, I was actually approached by 2 other councils, as well as Darebin, to win me over, to come over. So I just had to, in some cases, I think you've got to realise you can't fight it. You've got to move on.
Yeah.
And I think I probably put a little bit too much time into trying to fight it, and I should have moved on. And I think that's a big learning curve that
Cool. No, I appreciate you sharing that. That's
yeah.
What other
And
challenges when you first started out?
people, oh my gosh, Katrina, some of to get out in the marketplace, I did lots of farmers markets every week. I would do uh, three farmers markets or 3 types of markets, and just to get the product out there and to talk to people and get feedback on the products as well. And as you can imagine, there's some really, really mean people out there, and some people, it wasn't just men, it wasn't just women, would literally walk up to me with no intention of buying or asking me any questions, but accuse me of not supporting farmers, or tell me
Wow.
that I was doing it wrong, or say that I was breaching ACCC guidelines by calling it cheese. And others would come up and tell me that they couldn't be vegan because they like to shoot rabbits.
Oh
But my
my God.
personal favorite of all time was some woman just came up to me and said, I cannot go vegan because my canine teeth tingle.
Oh
And that
my
was like,
God.
and
Oh my gosh. That would have been hard not to burst out laughing. Oh my
oh, it was,
goodness.
I was shocked. But 3 markets a week, and week in, week out, week in, week out. And you've got to develop a thick skin.
I was
And
about to say, you've got to have that resilience, haven't you? That was the number one quality when I was doing my book, that I asked people what kind of, what personal quality do you think you need most to survive running a vegan business? And I don't know, it may be true in other businesses as well. But obviously, this was around vegan business, and they said resilience. You can't take it personally.
Stubbornness.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. What about now then, Melissa? So 6 years later, you've grown the business, and we're going to talk a little bit about the growth of the business. But what are your current challenges, and how are you handling those?
At the moment, it's growth and still and trying to stay current. So there are a lot of new entries into the market, which is fantastic and wonderful, because when Australian producers make using Australian products, there's less likely to be preservatives or yucky ingredients. So we have some of the most amazing non-dairy cheese makers currently evolving at the moment. And obviously, I've got to stay ahead of the pack, or at least in the front line of the pack, and create and be innovative and make sure that my products are still of quality, and the pricing works out. So we don't want to scare non-vegans away, or also make it too difficult for vegans to buy a product based because of the price.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you've got to work on your returns and manage growth. And growth is where you get, as you know, growth is where you can make more product, which means that you can bring the costs down somewhat because of your buying power. And it's just this crazy leapfrog process where you go, okay, I've got a head and now I need a new machine, or I've got a head but I need to buy this amount of product. So it's managing the growth and ensuring that we don't go down the bunny hole and just waste money unnecessarily in trying to be competitive in the wrong way, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Got it. Like trying to be the cheapest vegan cheese in town. Is that what you mean?
Like
Yeah.
you want to be quality in regards to an artisanal brand is definitely key.
Yeah.
Price comes at maybe second, even third in along that. But also we're looking at contract manufacturing, which we'll probably talk about in a bit, in which case probably price might be the factor. So it's just trying to manage that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the growth, because you've gone, as you say, from a small artisanal cheesemaker to now you're sold in, quite a lot of stores, retailers nationwide, and you've opened the cheese factories. Tell us a little bit about that how that happened, about how that growth, how you went from, say, doing those farmers markets to being sold in stores, because that's, quite a leap. And I think it would be helpful to share how you went about that. How did you know you were ready to get into retailers? What did you do to get into them? Did you use a distributor? Did you cold call the retailers? Tell us a little bit about how you did that.
Cold calling is such a horrible thing, but it has to be done. So 6 years ago, most retailers didn't want anything to do with vegan cheese, especially back then. It was very difficult to get cheeses, or the way that I was producing them at the time, I was finding it quite difficult to get more than like 3 weeks shelf date on it, which is not something that a retailer wants to put risk on. So if you can't get the retailer to put risk on it, then you definitely can't get a distributor, wholesaler, to put risk on a 3-week-old product. So it meant having to be really a bit more smarter about packaging, about what ingredients were used, temperature controls, and that sort of thing. So the markets were great because I got feedback immediately from people, and I was able to work with that data. In regards to getting into the stores, I try to do that pretty much straight away. And cold calling, is a horrible, horrible job.
Well, when you say straight away, do you mean while you were doing the markets, or how soon after you did the market?
Yes, immediately.
Oh wow!
I realized that if I wanted to be serious about it, I needed to be serious about getting into the retail stores as well, because that also helps you work out whether that facet of your business will have sustenance. And so I was just calling stores, health food stores, ones that I definitely knew were vegan friendly. So we started off them, and we got some great support from businesses like some of the Go Vitas and the little independent stores. I mean, I'm not sure whether you would have heard of in New South Wales, but we've got a couple of IGAs here that are very aware of, the impact of caging chickens, and so they do not have caged eggs. And they were like the first in Australia to do that sort of thing. So initially I seeked out those type of people, or those type of businesses, and just begged them to ask their favourite stores to get it in. Because I'm not too sure, customers don't realise that when they ask for it, the retailer sees, okay, there's a demand, whereas when someone cold calls, it's a risk.
It's interesting. It's funny you say that. It came up in the panel I hosted recently, 2 nights ago, actually, here in Sydney. And we had someone who has like dips and other like vegan products. And that was one of the things, because I said, can you get it into like my local store? Because it's handy for me, or, the place where I get my, fruit and veg delivered. And they were kind of like, look, we do call, and, sometimes it could be hard for us to get through. But I said, well, I'll mention it. And she said, please do, because they do listen to customers. So that's a good point that you've raised there.
So I did a lot of digging.
I imagine that's great. No, but look, I'm curious though, when you said, because you're doing markets is one thing, because you kind of, you can approximate how much cheese maybe you're going to sell, whatever. But then when you've suddenly now got to supply retailers who, like you said, are taking a risk, they're giving you shelf space. How did you manage that kind of growth in terms of producing the products? I think that's where a lot of people can get unstuck, when they're going from, say, a home-based kitchen to then suddenly you've got all these orders, and people are actually buying the product in all these different places. Can you talk a little bit about how you managed that, the actual production of it to meet the demand?
Well, initially it was slow, and when they did take it, they only took small amounts, so threes, and, obviously today people take like 12s and 24s, but back then it was 3. So it wasn't it was possible to adjust as we went along. And then obviously I needed to get some help in to produce the product to meet the demands that were starting to arise, which was great. Then as you work through it, you do realize there is a point. And I did this full time. So I never had a secondary job I have not had a secondary job in the last 6 years. This has been all encompassing. So if I was in the kitchen at 11 o'clock at night, I was in the kitchen at 11 o'clock at night, and so be it. And if I had to work through, I worked through. And I know that that's probably not entirely healthy and not the objective that people want when they want to be self-employed and start their own businesses. But there's sacrifices that you have to make.
Yes.
And at some point you've got to determine whether the cost of employing someone or increasing will work out in proportion to the amount of product that you're making and getting paid, and assuming that your customers pay you within a reasonable time as well, which is another interesting thing about retailing, is that you don't always get your money fast or in some cases at all. So I know it's a very vague question, and I think it will differ from place to place. And because we use all our products are more or less fridge products, we operate on a different platform than an ambient business or a clothing, shoes, boxed product business. So I'm sorry, but the best I can say is you just got to slug it out. And also, it's probably worth knowing, because we did do this as well, utilize other businesses. So I worked with Juanita's Kitchen a bit, so we helped each other out. I helped her, she helped me. And sometimes people are lucky enough to have family that will work for food.
Yes. Chocolate's usually a good one there, isn't it? Chocolate's probably the most attractive one. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll get free. Come and work in exchange for a free chocolate.
So I wish that there was an absolute steadfast calculation in regards to this, or one, if there is, I didn't figure it out.
No, that's cool. That's helpful information. So do you work directly with retailers rather than working with a distributor? And if so, why?
Well, now I occasionally work with retailers, depending on what they want, but mostly I work with distributors.
Okay. And why?
Well, it got to the point where when you do it by yourself, this is another thing you've got to calculate as well. How much time are you going to be on the road dropping deliveries off to your retailers? So when you're doing that, you can lose an entire day or a day and a half. And is that worth, if you want to factor in the return on investment there, your wage, theoretically, if you're actually getting paid at that time, petrol, vehicle, tolls, all that sort of thing, and obviously the downtime from we're not actually making something? Or is it better to take a percentage out and get someone else to do the leg work for you, which means that you can get it into further areas? So there is a seesaw point where you can, and you'll feel it, go, I need someone else to do this for me, because I'm actually costing the business more money by doing it myself.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point. I just want people to hear that sometimes when you try to do it all yourself, you think you're saving money, but as you've said, it can actually cost your business money. That's a really good point. Thank you for raising that.
We did, I did have a driver for a period there as well, and he was, a couple of drivers through the time, and they were fantastic, but then they were still limited to the distances that they wanted to travel as well. So I couldn't have my drivers driving out to East Gippsland. So like I said, the amount of money that potentially I could have been producing in goods or product was not occurring because I was out on the road not wasting that, but initially it wasn't a waste of time, but in the end it was. Got it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Money. Yeah,
so brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Some good tips and insight there. I love that. Now, you've recently, as we mentioned, you've opened a cheese manufacturing plant in Melbourne, which is very exciting. Tell us a little bit about that. So why did you decide to actually open a manufacturing plant yourself rather than outsource the manufacturing? How do you go about it? And I'm curious whether you also produce, or whether you plan to produce, other vegan brand's products, and just, what the benefits are and any challenges. So that was a long question, wasn't it? Lots of things in there, but I'm just curious about tell us about the opening of the factory.
I can't even tell you how happy I am that we have this facility now, and that Andy Medic actually came and opened it for us. That was an absolute thrill.
That's for international readers, just for international listeners. Andy Medic is the Victorian MP for the Animal Justice Party. Very smart guy, very passionate, doing some amazing things to make things better for animals. So, that's wonderful. He got along and did the cutting of the ribbon.
Yes, it was all very lovely. And my husband was saying, you need to do this. But things cost money. And so financially it was a factor. And I was very lucky that a family member actually helped co-contribute the initial startup to start it going. In doing it, building it, my husband and I, we're very handy. We've built our house, and so we learned a few tricks of the trade. We did pretty much everything to save money. We put the walls up, we built the walls, we installed things. The only thing.
So did you build this from scratch, or was it not an existing facility and then you renovated it?
Yes. So we found a building in a set of factories.
Oh, okay.
And it took me over a year to find. So once I decided I was going to do this, it took me a year to find, because ultimately, to save a little bit of money, we needed a mezzanine of some size, because structurally that would take the cost down a little. So we finally found this, and we put the walls in, we put the ceiling installed. The only thing we didn't do was, because legally we're not supposed to, is the electricity, most of the plumbing, and I had to get someone to do the floor. But everything else we did over many, many weekends.
Wow. While still running your existing business. Wow.
Yes, there was some pretty big bags under my eyes. And and as the whole process started, I started speaking with Unreal Co. And we've developed and that's
a plant-based meat company here in Australia. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and we've been working on and off for a couple of years, and they were looking at other options as well. And and then they actually put in a contribution to get it done faster. So they basically bought time, which was great. And then we went, well, you know what? Why don't we just contract manufacture your products, your small run products, out of this facility? And that's pretty much where the funding come from. So we were very, very lucky. The timing just worked out well. We got exceptional help from the council, and it just all fell into place. So that's why that happened at that particular time. And what was the other part?
Fantastic. So I'm just curious, so you're doing contract manufacturing for one particular company. Do you envisage yourself perhaps making other vegan cheese companies' products as well? And then obviously, even though you're competing on the shelf, it's interesting because again, with this panel, Ken from ICU does that apparently, and also I know in the UK Plamel, the chocolate company, make other vegan chocolate brands, and they sit on the shelf in quotes competing, but it's all great because it's kind of a win for everyone, really.
Well, I agree 100% with that. I mean, it would also make more sense for smaller businesses that want to start up, that don't have the facility, to trial test runs through here, and we could do that. If there was a business that was being set up or was manufacturing out of, say Perth, hypothetically, and they wanted to work together, then it would save on freight, time, manhandling hours for any distribution of their product to become out of this facility into South Australia and Victoria and New South Wales, because freight into and from Perth is quite horrible and similar to Queensland. That being said, we would not be opposed to doing any other states or even Victoria. There obviously you need to have disclosure and confidentiality agreements put in place, which we'd be very keen to be involved in. So we haven't actually done it yet with vegan cheese, but AVS Organic Foods actually makes a roast each. Well, it's always available all through the year, but it predominantly stocks up and gets more run of it at Christmas time. And currently we are manufacturing for the Unreal Co brand a Christmas roast for them.
Oh, nice.
So we are in direct competition, but we're not.
Yeah,
if you like,
exactly.
Say, because just to add more options to the market. And I think one of the beautiful things that I've realised over my many years in retail is competition helps some products. Having two products on the shelf at the same time gives people the options. One with the different ingredients, one with others, whether it's allergy or for whatever reason. Yeah. And if that wasn't the case, why do KFC, McDonald's and Hungry Jack's always build their facilities? Yeah, so competition is not a bad...
And same with regular cheeses as well. Look at the amount of dairy cheeses there are. And it's like, now there's vegan cheeses, and then we need the more the merrier, because everyone's got different palates and, like you say, different ingredients, allergies. Tastes. Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. So how
so
big
I'll be very keen to get that happen. And then theoretically, we'll outgrow this space, and within 2 years we'll get a bigger facility and let someone else use this setup for their up-and-coming business.
So how big is the facility, Melissa, and how many staff do you employ?
So the facility as a whole is about 150 square metres.
Okay.
About 150 square metres, so which is great. And currently I have 5 staff. Everyone's casual at the moment, so it's still at the cushioning feet, trying to make sure that there's work for everyone in the different areas, and everyone does different things. So we have a person that comes in and helps me cook or make or pack, then another person that does all the phone liaison. Oh, she's my phone liaison, so it sounds so much better than cold calling, because I hate cold calling. So my phone liaison does that. Someone helps with social media. Another person that's less frequently but still out there going into stores and doing tastings.
Right. So there's only a couple of you actually making all this cheese and these products. Wow.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I like to operate lean. Because it goes back to that whole everything's refrigerated, and if you have a product that's refrigerated and you make too much of it and then you've got to store it, you're actually paying more money constantly in the storage. So to operate making just in time or very close to just in time is, at this point for this business, that could change down the future. Who knows?
But what if you got like a really big order? Then you would have to, I guess, just bring another member of staff in, even on a casual basis. Yeah, okay, got it. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Cool, fantastic.
But 2 of us running it, and we've been doing it for a while now, so we're pretty in tune, in sync with each other, which is great.
Awesome. So tell us about the word vegan. I know this is a kind of a controversial topic. The use of the word vegan in your marketing materials and your website, and, the prominence of the word. Some people say, oh no, let's call it plant-based or plant something. And then others are like, no, we're going to put vegan, like slap bang on the front, full and center, proudly a vegan brand. Tell us a little bit about, because I know you mentioned, your markets are obviously different. Obviously, some of your market are vegan, but then others, in the allergy market, or people wanting something, healthier, etc. So tell us a little bit about your use of the word vegan or otherwise, and why.
Yeah, it's very strategic. That has been a roller coaster of horribleness, to be perfectly honest. The business originally was called A Vegan Smiles. So it was very there in your face. This is a vegan product. And I think that's what had people at the markets, they saw vegan and went, oh, I'm going to go up and be mean.
Give you a hard time.
I don't know that that's their actual intention, but I'm going to go up and give her my point of view. And when the product went into the retail stores, people were not buying it because it said vegan on it. And so when I do tasting, they're like, oh, but I'm not vegan, so this is not for me.
Yes.
Well, it's for everyone. So I realised fairly early in the piece that firstly, there were not enough vegans, but vegans in general were not my market.
Really? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it took like 6 years ago. It's definitely, I think my archetypes need to be reassessed. But and allergies, like I was lucky as my customers developed. A lot of them back then were okay. I associate the word with vegan. My grandson's got a dairy allergy. My granddaughter's just gone vegan, or so forth and so on. So I renamed the business to be AVS Organic Foods, so AVS being a vegan smiles.
Oh,
and a
clever.
vegan smiles, and a vegan smiles is actually how arrogant is this that it's an anagram of my name.
Oh,
Melissa.
Is it? Oh, how clever! Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. It's kind of you infused into the brand, and your energy and your passion is infused into the brand. I think that's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of it was kind of funny back then, and then I went, oh no, people hate it, so we changed it. To AVS Organic Foods, but I always put the word vegan on there, always. Right. And that's because I think this is because I'm an ethical vegan, maybe not, because it was less of a business strategy, more of a I am vegan, I want you to be vegan, this is a vegan product.
Yeah.
And so I always had the word vegan on there, but it was less in your face.
Exactly.
Before.
Yeah, gotcha.
Now, 6 years later, we rebranded and we've put back onto the brand, the label, A Vegan Smiles.
Oh, you have? Oh, okay.
So, right. Yeah. So now it has a little circle, and a vegan smiles part is actually in the shape of a smile. So it looks like the logo's smiling at you. So 6 years later, I'm proud to put that back onto.
Oh, that's really good to know, because I think, and that is the case, I think, for businesses, particularly those that have been around for a little while. Initially it was like, oh no, we're not going to say it's vegan. Or if their market was predominantly vegans, then they would lead with vegan, and then they might change it and tweak it. And I think there's no, I always say to people, look, there's no right or wrong answer. Like, it really depends on your mission and your values as a business and who your market is. Sometimes it serves people to be stealth vegan. Like, my partner Tracy is a clinical hypnotherapist and naturopath. It's only like there's one little line on the website tucked away somewhere that says, and it doesn't even say vegan, it just says we're a cruelty-free clinic, and there's no animal products. And that's it, because then she gets people like sheep farmers and cattle farmers coming to see her. They wouldn't go anywhere near if they saw vegan or even plant-based kind of thing. So I think it just it depends on the business. So thank you for sharing that.
It actually makes me laugh a bit, because you're so right in that case, especially for Tracy.
Yeah.
In my case, it actually attracted farmers.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. You just never know. Yeah, you've just got to try it and see. Sometimes you've literally just got to give something a go.
Positive attraction.
No, true. So tell us about you. You touched on some of you said you've got a social media person. So what current marketing strategies do you use, and which do you find most effective?
Now, I'll preempt this by saying, when I did my MBA, it turns out I was quite good at doing assignments and sitting exams. I never thought I would be, but I was very, very crap at marketing. It's not my forte. And so currently at the moment, we've got Holly, who she does photography and posts up images and does meal inspirations. And this is not her background, but she likes doing it and she's happy to do it. We are working with an official marketing company at the moment for the launch in 2020, but it also is marketing. You need to have marketing. Marketing costs money. If I pay for the marketing now, can I buy that machine? So I always have been, and I wrongly or rightly, more often than not, chose ingredients or machinery over spending money on marketing, which, you can't turn back time and retry it. It might have made a difference, but then I might not have been able to produce as efficiently as we produce now. It could be more cumbersome. So marketing, you have to have it. I'm terrible at it. I need someone else to do it for me.
Right.
The only thing we did realize, and I think I already mentioned this, is that we were marketing to the wrong people when we first started. and the archetypes were changed pretty quickly to be allergy first and foremost, health conscious, and then vegans.
Okay.
And I like to think 6 years later it's been jumbled up, and vegans have come a little bit more ahead of the line because there's so many of us now, which is brilliant.
For sure. But you also do in-person stuff still, don't you? Like World Vegan Day Festival, or you're still involved in that face-to-face. Is that right?
Oh yeah. We had a little break because of the factory build this year. But I find that it does help too, and people like to have a good chat these days, especially new vegans or someone who's got a new vegan in their family. It's a great opportunity to lay some hints and thoughts in their mind as well. But I hate to say I'm not very good at marketing, and my strategy is.
But that's good. You've got someone in who can do it, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Just on the funding side, I know you mentioned long service leave, and again, for international listeners, that means when you've worked at a job for a certain amount of time, I think it's 10 years, you get a stash of money. So I know you've obviously, I guess, used partly that to fund the business, and then with the factory, you've had someone co-contribute. So have you managed to sort of fund the business as it's gone along as well? Like I know you said you've operated quite leanly, so rather than having investors, you've kind of you basically self-funded and then kept the business as sustainable as possible. Is that right?
So every dollar pretty much goes back into the business. Every dollar goes back into the business.
Yeah.
Procurement is a really big thing that people need to consider, because if you can find a little bit of money up ahead to buy, well, look, we don't use cashews that much, but use cashews as an example. But if you're only buying 10 kilos of cashews at a time and you're paying $35 a kilo, but you could buy 100 kilos at $8.
Oh, wow. That's a big difference, isn't it? Yeah.
A big, big difference to your bottom line, but you've got to find that money in the first place.
That's
so
right.
it's about managing and being a bit strategic of what you need and what you don't need to function. We've been very lucky that we haven't had to get any bank loans to this point. But yeah, I think every now and again you just want to crawl up into the fetal position and go, what's happening? Why isn't anyone paying me on time? Will I get through this? But it's a funny thing about being self-employed. It's a driver like nothing else. You get up and you go through it. So
yeah.
Having a distributor too is another thing a positive reason for having a distributor is you generally, if you get a good one and you have a great trust relationship with them, you'll get paid on time.
Yeah.
So you can see that. And we actually also do a little bit of food service as well, which helps, which is on the side, which does help bring in a little bit of money there as well.
Oh,
so
cool. Okay.
It's a juggling act. I think most businesses juggle their cash flow. We just happen to do it very, very lean.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, what's your long-term vision for yourself and your brand? Because I'm curious, because we're seeing more investors like vegan and vegan-friendly investors coming in, to kind of scale up companies. And not everybody wants to have a massive company. I mean, we all have our impact in different ways. So I'm just curious, what do you see as, you've obviously just recently opened the cheese manufacturing plant. So what's your long-term vision for both yourself and your brand?
Well, with AVS Organic Foods, I'd love to keep that as an artisanal brand where it produces high quality, good ingredient, happy allergy product. Just recently, I actually opened up a new business or started a new business. So this will probably be moving forward, taking up more of the time that I don't have. But we've called it ethical manufacturing. And that's where we'll probably do the contract manufacturing. That's where we'll build these business partnerships and associations with other companies and potentially investors down the track to be able to produce much bigger scale and get products out further reach than we can at the moment. But my love is, and stubbornly, AVS Organic Foods is my baby business, and I've had it for a while, and so I'm kind of I get offered at least once a year for someone to buy it off me.
Do
I'm
you?
like, and I'm like, oh no, not
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So, but moving forward, I think we'll keep running that one as we are, and we'll obviously keep the brand, the products coming out of it fresh.
Yeah.
But the big scope in trying to get more vegan products out into the market and more options, whether it be foam meat, cheese, chocolate, or whatever you can think of, we'll definitely be working with partnerships.
Oh, I love that.
Forward.
I think that's fantastic. I love that, and people do that, particularly in this space when you've got a mission-based business, a business with purpose. It makes so much sense to do that. But we need people like you who are, who have been in that, kind of home-based, market-based kind of startup, and now, you've created this manufacturing plant, and now you're able to help other startups and other, and even other businesses who are quite set along the way. I think everybody's, not everyone wants to start their own contract manufacturing, their own manufacturing plant. So for you to be able to offer that is fantastic. Yeah. So, but I think it's wonderful that you've done that. It's been great hearing about your growth over just 6 years, which I think is brilliant. So you've shared a lot of
I've been
advice.
So lucky. I've met so many wonderful people.
Fantastic. Well, you've shared some great advice, and it's been lovely speaking with you, and I shall look forward to seeing you in person at some stage and trying even more of your amazing products. But thank you so much for joining me today, Melissa. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Katrina. Thanks so much for having me. Much appreciated.
So that was Melissa Murphy Webster from AVS Organic Foods. You can find out more at avsorganicfoods.com.au. And that link is on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 135. Now for some vegan business news highlights. Handbags from vegan fashion brand Gunness are now available at Macy's flagship store in Herald Square, New York City. Founder Sugandh Agrawal, also based in New York, said her bags are the first vegan bags to be carried by the prestigious retailer. In 2018, Gunness won the Best Independent Handbag Award out of 4,000 applications from designers across the globe at the Independent Handbag Designer Awards. Part of the prize was participation in Macy's annual business workshop at the Herald Square store, which the company uses to assess potential new brands to stock, as well as prepare the designers to work with big box retailers. Macy's was so impressed with Gunness that it agreed to take a small collection in December last year. That's 2019 if you're listening in the future. And Agrawal hopes to expand the Macy's partnership through 2020 on a bigger scale. This is fantastic news. It's great to see renowned retailers like this recognise vegan and sustainable fashion and be willing to give independent vegan brands exposure to their customers. Let's hope that we see a lot more of this. And I think it's also worth pointing out why it's important to take part in things like awards, for example, or to apply to be part of accelerators, because that can really give you opportunities to get in front of influential people, such as retailers. As we saw with the experience of Gunness, they got in front of Macy's by taking part in the awards and, of course, winning them. And that then led to the business workshop where they were mentored and guided by the big retailer. And then, of course, had their vegan brand stocked at the company. So have a think about some of the creative ways that you might be able to get in front of large-scale retailers and influential partners this year. Trade show Plant-Based World Conference and Expo returns to New York City this year after a successful debut in 2019. Organised by JD Events, the Expo will also be making its European debut in October in London at the Business Design Centre. According to organisers, Plant-Based World Europe will be the only European B2B focused event to bring together plant-based product producers and manufacturers with retailers, distributors, food service providers, restaurateurs, entrepreneurs, investors and healthcare professionals. The event will feature a community day on day 2, which will provide access to the general public alongside the industry audiences. Now, I attended and reported on the inaugural event in New York last year, and I'm really excited to see PBW expand into Europe. You can find out details on how to attend or exhibit at plantbasedworldexpo.com and plantbasedworldeurope.com, respectively. And those links are on the show notes page for this episode at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 135. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you like the show, please give it a review on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on, as it helps to get it seen by more people. There are more free resources on the veganbusinessmedia.com website to help you in your quest to build and sustain a successful business. And if you'd like to work with me personally on promoting and growing your vegan business or brand, you'll find details on how to do this on the website at veganbusinessmedia.com and clicking on the Work With Me menu link. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.